People these days increasingly complain of suffering from allergies, to pollen, to cats, to dust, to certain foods like peanuts or shellfish, for example. But what exactly are allergies and why do we develop them? Well, an allergy is the body reacting to something that is trying to harm it. Sometimes the reaction is mild, sneezing or a rash, perhaps, but in extreme cases it can be life-threatening. In an allergic reaction, the body is stimulated to produce histamines, which help to get rid of what is harmful. So, your eyes and nose may stream as a way of losing irritating particles, or your skin may itch in order to make you scratch it and so remove any harmful parasites. In some societies these days, allergic reactions occur without the person being in a harmful situation. However, in situations where, say, hygiene is less developed, then the body's immune system spends its early years fighting off genuine problems and so does not tend to overreact to harmless irritants at a later stage. So, how to deal with an allergy? The first step has to be to ascertain what triggers the allergic reaction and then to avoid contact with that allergen as far as is possible. If avoidance is impossible, antihistamines can be prescribed to minimize the symptoms experienced by the sufferer. Traveling in the mind's eye, through reading and, more recently, through electronic media, is a European habit of long standing. Ever since the age of discoveries in the Renaissance, Europeans have been interested in reports of life in faraway places. Of all the places in which Europeans were interested, America has received more attention than others for a variety of reasons, the most important of which is that many Europeans themselves emigrated there. The report about America from the person who has been there is a literary genre that Europeans have devoured. As Europeans watched the United States grow from a British colony to one of the dominant nations of the world, a pattern of conversation developed among them about the meaning of this emerging colossus of the New World. There emerged a question, aptly stated by Richard Rose: is America inevitable or inimitable? The question is easier to ask than to answer, and both sides of the question are amply represented in American and European writing about America. The one stresses the uniqueness of America, that no nation or people can be compared with the experience of Americans. The other stresses that America is the forerunner of what European, even world, society will be tomorrow. Readjusting to life in your own country after living abroad for some time is a little like recovering from jet lag after a long flight across several time zones. It takes time. And research indicates that after 9 years living in a foreign country, you never really do readjust. Of course, things have changed, governments have come and gone, what you knew as countryside has become a suburb, new technologies have changed the way people go about their daily lives, and so on. These changes may well have been taking place in your adopted country, but they were happening while you were there, so you could adapt as you went along. Those are nor the main difficulties, however. It is in the smaller, everyday things that you might experience what is known as culture shock, although it's not really a shock. But puzzling all the same. For example, the precise way to behave at a supermarket checkout may have changed. And in ordinary conversation, the frames of reference have changed, and quite often you find that you don't really know what people are talking about, even though they are speaking your native tongue. It isn't necessary to have a specialized knowledge of, say, the intricacies of counterpoint, or even to be able to read music to understand it. Usually, getting the point of a piece of music, its emotional and dramatic impact, is immediate or simply requires you to become more familiar with it. Of course, prolonged study of music and its composition, as in any other field, will increase your understanding, but not necessarily your enjoyment. Now, I realize that it can require a good deal of willingness on our part to risk new sensations, and there is a lot of music that will seem unfamiliar and alien to you on a first hearing. Before farming was introduced into Scotland, people lived by hunting, fishing, and gathering wild foodstuffs. This way of life meant that they usually didn't settle permanently in one place, but were to an extent nomadic, moving about in search of a livelihood, perhaps returning to the same places at certain times of the year. It is believed that the islands of Orkney were known to these people, but, so far, only a few flint tools to verify this. This is because coastal erosion has destroyed many ancient sites, and these may have contained relics of some of these earliest pioneering colonists. Paper was first manufactured in Europe by the Spanish in the 12th century, although it had been imported since the 10th century. Around the year 1276, a mill was established at Fabriano in Italy. The town became a major center for papermaking and throughout the 14th century provided most of the European with fine quality paper, which it has continued to produce ever since. By the 15th century, paper was also being manufactured in Germany and France, and it was not long before both countries became almost completely independent of material bought overseas. With the increasing availability of paper in Europe, the identical printed pictures became almost inevitable production of identical printed pictures. A cliché, as you know, is an overused and worn-out phrase, and, these are to be avoided like the plague in your essays. Indeed, someone once said, I quote, There is no greater danger to either education or thinking than the popular phrase. Let me digress a little further. Originally, a cliché was a printer's term, back in the days when letters were set one by one, for a ready-made block of type of frequently used phrases, usually in the newspaper business. So, there you are. Clichés were also known as stereotypes. Now, if you think of graphic design as a language with its own vocabulary, grammar, and so on, it too must have its clichés. Obvious examples would be the twin Greek masks of comedy and tragedy that symbolize the theater, and, more popularly known, the heart as a symbol of love, especially on Valentine cards, and so on. Far from being a terrible fault, as it would be in literature, the visual cliché is essential in the world of graphic communication. This is certainly true when it comes to advertising and propaganda. The visual cliché can give immediate life to an idea and a clear meaning to what could be a mere abstraction. Map-making has a long and fascinating history, both before Ptolemy produced the first great map of the world and after, up to the beautiful simplicity of the London Underground map and the precisely detailed Ordnance Survey maps, which cover almost every inch of the United Kingdom. Ancient mapmakers used to draw in hills, valleys and rivers to give an idea of the topography, the shape of the land. It wasn't until the late 16th century that contour lines were used, that is, lines that linked points of the land at the same height, but this was to show the relative depths and shallows of a river. The first time land contours were used was on a map of France, which took about 40 years to complete, and was finished in 1783. The Ordnance Survey was set up in 1791, and their maps, as the name suggests, were originally made for military purposes, and the first one to be produced was of the county of Kent at a ratio of 1 inch to 1 mile. The Chinese were, as far as we know, the inventors of paper money, and because it was so easy to move compared with coins, it was named flying money. They were also the first to experience an economic problem which has become all too familiar. By the 12th century, there was money in circulation to cause serious inflation. In Europe, it wasn't until about 1400 that bankers in Spain and Italy began to honor bills of exchange, which were a kind of private paper money not in general use. They were documents used by those involved in a business transaction in which payment was made through a third party to avoid the cost of foreign exchange. However, it is the Swedes who are generally credited with producing the first proper European bank, BEEP. Using less energy saves money and lowers greenhouse gas emissions. And various studies have looked at ways to get households to use less energy. Now there's evidence that people in such a study use less energy, because they're in a study. The general phenomenon is called the Hawthorne effect. Study subjects change their behavior because they're being observed. So researchers collaborated with a utility to test for the Hawthorne effect in electricity use. They monitored almost 5,600 randomly selected households. Half received a postcard saying that their energy use would be monitored for a month for research purposes. They also got 4 follow-up reminder postcards over the month. They received no other information, instructions, or incentives. The control group monitored for the study got no notifications. That group continued using the same amount of electricity. English had barely established itself as a language in England when it began moving to other countries to be used there as well. First it headed north to Scotland and then west to Wales. It then made its pathway across the sea to Ireland. That was in the Middle Ages. Over the course of the following centuries it has put down roots all over the world, from the USA to South Africa, from India to New Zealand. Of course, in all these countries it has developed in special ways to suit the new contexts in which it found itself. The library offers study rooms, computer access, and research assistance services. Regular exercise promotes physical fitness and reduces stress levels in students. Balancing coursework and a part-time job requires effective time management. Meeting project deadlines is essential for academic and professional success.